thanks for coming. This is Talking Politics in Western Pennsylvania. I'm Bill Merrell. Our guest today is Harlan Shober. Harlan, always good to have you
Good
on
morning,
the program,
Bill.
my
Yes.
friend. Harlan, people always ask how people get on here, and most of the time they call me. This time I called you. You've been on a number of times, and I always enjoy talking to you because we've known each other for 20 plus years now.
At least, yes.
Yeah, we were both in the Corvette Club. That's where I met you years ago. Jackie, your lovely wife, are very good personal friends of ours. So I just want to make sure that the public knows that even though you're on one side of the aisle and I'm on the other side, that we can in fact be good friends. I'm going to start giving the public a little bit about your background. You've held a number of public offices as well as private.
Absolutely.
Yes.
You learn from experience over the years, and I guess I've had some of those. From a business standpoint, I really worked 32 years with AT&T and retired in 1997 as a district manager in Pittsburgh. Went right into home building, and I had my own company for 14 years, building custom homes in the out there throughout Washington County and other areas. And gave up business, turned that business down before I decided to run 2011 for county commissioner. From a local government standpoint, I've spent 12 years as a school board member at Charters Houston, and then I went a few years later. I went into the township supervisor role, and I spent 16 years there. And I had to resign that when I was elected county commissioner, and I'm in my 7th year now as county commissioner.
Okay, see, you and I sort of took a little bit. I started out at the council and then I went into the school board. Your whole family lives out near your area?
I have 3 out of my 4 children live right next to me, next door, on the same little road. And my other daughter, who is from the Peters Township area, but actually is living about 20 minutes up the road toward 79 at this point in time.
Well, then they do live in the area. My kids are in Florida,
absolutely.
all over the place.
And with 12 grandkids, my wife Jackie is very happy to have the 12 grandkids in the area. That's
yeah,
for
it's
sure.
always funny, and I always say it. The grandkids, I like them. I should have had them first.
Well, they go home at night. Is that what you're saying? Yeah. No,
They're
it's
actually
been
fun
a
to be
pleasure.
around.
We have actually, out of the 12 grandkids, we have 5 now in college. And I have 7 more that's on their way, heading that way, I hope. So we're very fortunate, and I say every day we're blessed with the family and being able to enjoy the children and the grandchildren as we grow older.
Well, I've seen your house around the holidays, and I can say that you're well prepared for all of them at the same time.
I would say it's decorated, that's for sure. My wife loves to do the decorating.
Well,
So.
she does a fine job. Let's talk about your time now in as a commissioner.
Okay.
Okay. What has been the things that you see that you've made a difference in? Now, I know you're involved in many things for the Washington County. My wife was president of the Washington Symphony, and you were on the board.
Yes.
But you're on not only the board of the Washington Symphony, you're on the other boards.
I actually have been involved. I love music. At one point in my time as a youngster, I was going to go to college to be a music teacher. I played trumpet and I loved to sing, but I never did that. I went a different direction. But from a standpoint of the community, I think that music's important. So the WSO, Washington Symphony Orchestra, by the way, 13th coming up.
Yes.
First concert,
Yes.
so everybody get there at the Trinity School District. But bottom line, it's something where if you're giving back to the community, which is why I love doing my job. I've had my careers in that. So I've been involved. So I'm on the United Way board, and I'm involved in that. I'm working with the now called Blueprints. It's the Community Action Southwest. I'm on the board there. And I'm also, as one of the county commissioners, I represent the county commissioners as a member of our mental health board that we have. And we counsel and work with our mental health department within the county. So I get very involved with that. Those are very important issues that we face. And it's nice to be able to bring my business background, local government, what I do, to be part of those boards and to help help give direction to where we go with those things.
What most people don't understand is being a county commissioner is not a 9-to-5 job. Okay? That's something, like I said, a lot of people see you out but they don't understand that you also have that 9 to 5 job. But you're attending. I've seen you at our community day. I've seen you at all the other functions, and whenever they had the historical house over there in Finley or Venetia.
Sure, the White House, yeah.
Yeah, well, you've been there for that activity. You've been. I mean, like I said, every time I turn around, you're there. And that's, like I said, it says a lot about your community involvement, but I don't think people understand the time commitment and you get paid the same salary. It's not like you get overtime.
It's very interesting. I've had many good jobs in my life throughout AT&T career. I did a lot of different things: operations, computers, sales. But this is, I say, the best job I've ever had. It is flexible in some areas. The hours aren't 40 hours a week, because Saturday and Sunday are still work days for the county commissioners. We're basically out and about. And when people say, "Harlan, you're always running, you're always here," and I say, it's part of my job. But bottom line, it isn't a job to me. It's something that I love, being out with the people. And so if I'm out there, and if I'm not campaigning, I'm out there because I'm been invited. They want the county commissioners to come and represent that organization and be there. It's a fun thing, but yet you're still doing your job. And so hours are not 8 to 5, but there are many days I'm there 9 to 4, 4:30, and I'm still out from 4:30 to 10, 11 o'clock at night. But to me, when it becomes a job now, then I guess basically I'm doing something wrong. I love what I do, and it makes it very easy.
It's surprising to me. Last spring, I was here at an event at the high school, and a woman walked up to me and said, "Why are you here?"
Yeah.
And I said, "Well, I'm on school board." She says, "But you're always at these events." And I said, "And what's wrong with that?" She goes, "Don't you have anything better to do?" I'm like, wait a minute. How can you commit to doing a job if you don't love it?
Yeah.
And that's, like I said, and we're not paid, so I mean, this is all my own time and my own dime. So what is the problem?
And there's another thing, that when you're out for a function or an event, or to show up at the opening of the new school district, or groundbreakings or whatever, you end up talking about a lot of different issues about the county, and you learn what people are thinking out there, what their needs are, what their issues. I never go to an event where I don't walk away, someone has given me another chore to do on behalf of them. And to me, it's the biggest thing in their minds, because that's why they brought it up.
Sure,
and so it opens up the door to understand what the community needs, what the people are looking for. And I take that back, and I send a lot of messages to myself. I don't know if you've ever done that. I do emails.
As I
so
get
that when
older,
I
the
get
more
back to the
messages I
office,
send.
I send a message. I look at all messages, say, yes, make sure you follow up on this.
Sure.
Make sure you set up a meeting with so-and-so. And so it's kind of it's being very open to the public, because you're out there for one reason, but it ends up 3 or 4 other things come out of that you need to work on. That's my job. That's what I'm there to do for the people. So it's very nice. It's also nice when you are a county commissioner to go out and you're not pushing, you're not trying to campaign. You're there because you want to be part of it. I think the biggest challenge, and you may understand this, is that there's sometimes 4 or 5 things going on in an evening. I like to go somewhere, be part of it, and stay with it. And you find out sometimes you're running back and forth between events. And so I have learned how to adapt. That's not me, Harlan, but I've learned how to adapt to that. And it's not you showed up, even if you're not there the whole evening. People appreciate the fact that you took time out to be with them because they invited you to something.
Well, let's talk about some of the things that you've been able to accomplish while you've been on commissioners. Now, the growth at South Point.
We're full.
I mean, yeah, like I said, this is something that sat dormant for how many years? Nobody, I mean, everybody driving by there thought that, the only thing that was missing was the old Morganza building.
Yeah.
And but it nothing for all those years, and then all of a sudden, about 8 years ago, 9 or 7 years ago, things start happening.
Yeah. It was called Frank's Folly many years ago, because why would you do this? Why would you put that property into a development stage for businesses? It's been very successful over the years. And part of that, what starts at is infrastructure is put in place. A new interchange on 79 made it very accessible, which is always one of the things we look at in expanding jobs by doing development and putting pad-ready locations. But then you have to have a good strategy of what are you doing here? What are you bringing jobs in? No one can doubt that the gas industry has been a boon to our area. It has created jobs. South Point, look how many gas-related businesses there, but that's not the only ones there. So having a very open, inviting atmosphere in your county, which I think Washington County does. We want people to bring their businesses here, which then creates jobs and keeps our kids here. With 12 grandkids, you know how I want to keep all my kids here.
Well,
but that's kind of the way it works, and as they say, in government, you open the door, hopefully, and then you get out of the way. You let the private market take over. We have done a lot in South Point with our development teams to keep it moving the right direction. And now we're moving on, where do we go next? And we're always working on where do we put that next business that wants to come to Washington County. I think that's one of the things I thrive on because of my business background, my home building, doing development. Those are things I get my teeth in. I'm a hands-on when it comes to that. But that's what we are doing right now. One of the big is where do we go next? What locations would be best for us to bring jobs in? And we're all over the county trying to do that.
It's funny you say that. I was just on to Bell Vernon this morning earlier, and I was talking to a couple people down there, and Brownsville came up.
Sure.
And I don't know that I ever told you this, but in the movie The Silence of the Lambs, I was a guard.
You were a guard.
I was a guard. And whenever we were sitting there one time, Jonathan Demme was sitting behind us talking to his staff people and said that, he enjoyed working in Pittsburgh area and everything else. And what he wanted to do was find a place around here that would be a timepiece, late 1800s, early 1900s, that kind of thing. And so the next day, they're all at lunch again, right behind us, talking. And Jonathan said, I told you to go find me a place. We said, we found it. He said, what do you mean you found it? And one day I said, yeah, we found it. It's a small place. He said, well, how much is it going to cost us to put it into what we need? He said, about $400. So what are you talking about? One street light. And they said, what? He said, Brownsville. He said, it hasn't changed in all those years. And it's just like he said, hopefully the roads heading down there, the roads to the airport will make that more accessible and everything else, so that community can change.
Absolutely. And the small towns in Washington County and throughout the nation are suffering. Our area, steel mills are gone.
Sure.
They're not coming back.
Sure.
So we're looking to what can we bring in. You have down on the Mon Valley, down on the Mon River, you've got the river. We need to make that an asset. Your recreational, that's only summertime work, I know, but the recreational building thing, getting jobs down there. There's a few locations we're really pushing to bring in large jobs creator, 200-300 jobs. But we need to basically try to help these small towns. They're in poor conditions. We are working with our redevelopment arm and with the local governments, the local municipalities, to try to build them up. But I am a firm believer that you have to kind of put jobs in an area that then builds housing, that builds restaurants and
Sure.
gas stations. But it all starts with, I need a reason to live in that area, and that's jobs. So we're working hard to try to create jobs. And one of the problems you have is that everybody wants to be between Washington and Allegheny County. That's the main thoroughfare, 79, Route 19, etc. But bottom line is we're always trying to figure out how we handle the rest of the county that needs that same development. And our small towns need a lot of help. They have no expansion, and they need all the help they can get to try to bring back some of the vitality that they once had. Whenever
Peters played Brownsville, oh my God, it must have been 20 years ago, easily, 25 years ago. I was told, don't take your good car. Don't take your wallet. Just take the minimal amount of money you need. I was scared to death to go down there myself. When I went down there, I had the most enjoyable evening that I had in years. The people, we sat behind the band parents. Now, the woman that I was dating at the time, her son played football for Peters. So I'm thinking, oh my God, this is not going to be the good place to sit behind. Well, in the middle of the game, they had pizza delivered, which they shared with us. And then I had a delightful opportunity talking to the refreshment person who, in fact, was so absolutely positive about that area. I actually wrote a letter saying that, this is what I was told beforehand. This is what I found it to be the case. And it's a shame that the word, they played the national anthem. Not one kid in the entire stadium had a hat on. Not one kid was talking. Not one kid was walking along while the anthem was being played. They stopped. They were reverent. They held their hands over their heart. And they actually were part of the Americana that you always heard about, that we grew up in. And it was a delightful evening. The people there are really good people. And
Absolutely.
they've been, as you said, they've had a rough time with it. Businesses have left because they can't economically stay viable whenever there's nobody coming into town. And you may know better than this than me, but that area was brought up basically because I thought it was going to be a casino at one time. Okay, that's what the rumor is. I'm not sure if it was
true. They talked about riverboats, didn't
Yes.
they, one time?
Yeah, and like I said, so that was going to be the thing that brought Brownsville back. It's a delightful little town, but like I said, the people have had a very tough time, and they, how do you pick people that have been down for so long, pick them up and make sure that they understand that they're a positive aspect in this whole thing?
They're great people. And you don't know that till you get out and meet with those
Yeah.
people. And I've done a lot of that. West Brownsville is in Washington County. When you go right across the river, they're in Fayette.
Right.
I know that. But I know the local government officials. We've been involved a lot in meetings and just talking. And, they're basically the salt of the earth when you think about it. It's easy when things are going good
Oh,
to have a smile on your face and to feel like everything's right. Go into these small towns, and especially the Mon Valley, especially Brownsville, and those areas. And you go in there, and I'd say they're harder fighters than a lot of other people because they've had to go with what you said. They've gone through the hard times. They don't have the dollars, even local government, school districts. They don't have the dollars to spend, but they're still out there doing their best and sharing pizza with you at a ball game.
and
That's a great thing to talk about.
Like I said, it was for me, and I've traveled literally all over the world, and it was probably the most relaxing, comfortable evening. Whenever I was so geared for watching everything, and it was an amazing opportunity to let people be people, and not a political thing, and not this crap that we're hearing about today, but just to let them be the good people that they are. And they got they got beat, but they weren't nasty about it. Hey, good game. Even the football players said that was one of the best teams that they ever played because of the fact that they'd help you up. They wouldn't try to push you down into the mud and this kind of stuff. I mean, it's just sad that these small towns they've not been forgotten,
No.
but
No.
but it seems to them like there's other people doing a lot better.
We talk about local share and money going to different communities for projects. The Mon Valley's got a good portion of the money that has been given out over since 2008, the last 10 years. And someone said, well, what about that? You know what? They have needs. They put requests in for money to help them get their bootstraps up, so to speak. And so therefore they're getting money there, and that's why we try to make sure that we listen to the best projects no matter where they're at, and we try to make sure that that money goes to good causes. And so we're pulling for the small towns, not just in the Mon Valley. You can go out to the Burgestown areas and all over the place.
Oh, sure.
These small towns need help, and bringing business in is kind of where we can maybe help the most.
Well, I have a question about South Point that I wanted to bring up to you.
Sure.
Approximately how many people are now working there?
The estimate's like around 10,000 people.
It's like a small, not even a small town,
And with the new addition of some of the restaurants and that, some of the housing that's there, it's been a success story in my opinion. I'm sure Cecil Township sees it as a success story. But better than that, it brings people here. hotels have sprung up. People come in for business. And so our tourism, all these things work together. But South Point has been a great success over the years. It's now full. We're working on projects right across the street called Cool Valley. We don't know where that'll go, but there's 900 acres there that could be developed. But I think something's coming, and it's the Southern Beltway from the airport.
Right.
And to me, when you have the Southern Beltway over the next couple of years, it gets completed from the airport to Route 79 right by the National Cemetery. When that road is completed, it's going to open up areas for development. It's going to open up places where jobs could be created one more time. So I'm looking forward to keeping the infrastructure going. We're very fortunate in Washington County, although sometimes we don't think that the roads being tore up. There's a lot of construction going on everywhere you look. The Turnpike Commission coming in and putting the Southern Beltway in. I think we're getting a lot of attention in Washington County because infrastructure is the future. If you have the roads, you have the access, you have the sewer, water lines, you're going to have growth over the years to sustain.
Well, and you bring up good points because of the fact that, like I said, the Southern Beltway comes through. Your access to the city as well as to the airport are the two main things you try to look for.
Yeah.
Okay. And in fact, if you can have one, like I said, it takes about 45 minutes now to get from here to the Greater Pittsburgh International Airport. That should take it down about to 25 to 30 minutes.
Shorten the trip.
Yeah, it'll shorten the trip, but it'll also connect those areas. So as you say, everywhere in between now will in fact be open to development and in fact bring more people into the area. A house just came up on the market across from us, and I was amazed to see the number of people. And of course, being the Nebby neighbor, I had to go and see what they did to the house. But while we were walking through, we met a lot of really nice families. Every one of them was from Upper St. Clair, they wanted to, or South Fayette, wanting to leave there to come to Peters for
Sure.
the school district and the low taxes.
Yes.
And that's what every couple that we talked to said the same thing.
Absolutely, and that's what we hear all the time, both of those issues, both the school district, which is a big incentive for the Peters Township area.
Oh, sure.
And the taxes throughout the county. People sitting, I have some examples, going through reassessment, which we hated to do.
Oh, sure.
But we had to do. I actually came out and addressed people here in Peters Township to talk about what the assessment means and answer questions. But bottom line, looking at that has been one of the big issues, that we still are the second lowest taxes in the Southwest Pennsylvania. I believe Butler's number one and we're number two. And someone said, well, you just did reassessment. Well, reassessment still kept the county taxes the same.
Right.
We did not raise. We went revenue neutral. However, you and I especially, saw an increase in my taxes, even though the valuation that the county did was right on.
Right.
But I still saw a tax increase. But so it's individually, it may have affected you different, but from a county-wide standpoint, we stayed the same revenue generation as we had before. And so we're still the second lowest taxes. It's just how it's been distributed.
What most people don't understand too, Allegheny County gets reassessed every year. Okay, and those people, I mean, living right next to each other in the same house, one is 400,000 and one's 100,000, and they're fighting that, and the news media always carries that fight, of course. We had homes here in Peters that weren't reassessed for 30 years, yeah. And they were paying very low taxes, while the new homes were being assessed at the value of their price of the new home. And so the Venetia area, that area over in that side, was carrying a larger burden of the taxes of not only the school district but the county and the municipality than the other older sections. And a lot of people didn't like their taxes being raised, but of course I didn't like my taxes, being raised on my new house. Not raised, but just, I was more appreciative of it because my taxes were adjusted to, in fact. Doesn't mean that they stay low because the school district always is going to raise taxes because of the contracts and everything else that they have to deal with, always go up. So, I mean, like I said, sometimes being in government is more difficult than being a citizen who complains about government because, most people don't understand whenever a new house goes in, you're getting taxes, but now you may have to hire new police or you may have to get a new fire truck, or put in new water lines, or put in, bigger schools or whatever because of that. So the cost isn't always what a benefit. Sometimes building a new house doesn't mean that the community gets a benefit from it.
There's another thing going along with it. Those the outside complain, and that's what the public does, and we're okay with that. But once you get involved, and I found that when I went on the school board, when I became a township supervisor and a county commissioner, once you're in there and you see exactly what is going on, you can understand it. And so our job is to try to get that message out to the general public that they don't understand. They're only caring about their issue at the time, and that means that that's the most important thing I need to address with them. But it's a little different when you're inside trying to do the things rather than outside. Sometimes it's easier to criticize, but you know what? That's our right, and I never get offended by someone asking me a question. I don't get defensive about it. I just try to explain the best I can, and hopefully they walk away, and usually they do. They walk away, say thank you.
Whenever I grew up in Peters, okay, this is where I went to high school and everything else. The thing that I'm starting to realize, and maybe it's because of my age, okay, is the fact that we have quite a lot of elderly folks. Well, we don't have elderly folks living in a $900,000 home necessarily. What we do have is a lot of these little homes that were built, and the elderly folks who really do need some assistance, not just on a day-to-day basis, cutting grass and things like that. But we need, we really do have to pay attention to them as far as the taxes and stuff, and how we raise taxes and who we raise taxes on, and all those other things, which sometimes it's very hard to pluck a group out of the overall.
There's certain rules that you have to follow. For instance, you can't spot assess a house because they sold it. Yeah. So there's a lot of things we have. I do a lot of things that maybe I just want to help. Yeah. But you have rules we have to follow, and so that kind of does govern us.
Well, Harlan, we're going to take a break here for a commercial, and we will come back on the other side. We want to talk about a lot of the county infrastructure, and I'm talking about organizations that the county has, what they offer to the community. Sure. All right. We'll talk to you in a little bit. Thanks. Hopefully you'll come back. Well, once again, thanks for coming back. This is Bill Merrell, and this is Talking Politics in Western Pennsylvania. Our guest today is Harlan Shober, County Commissioner for Washington County. Harlan, as we discussed earlier, some of the things that you've been involved in as a county commissioner. We've talked about South Point. We've talked about the Mon Valley and Bronzeville. Let's talk about some other things. Why don't you give the folks a little example of some of the other things that you've been personally involved in, not just signing something as a county commissioner or letting it happen.
That's fine. I think one of the things that I got involved with after I came into the county position was the issue of having a booking center, for instance. What is a booking center? It sounds like a mundane thing, but it's very important to the communities where when someone is detained by our law enforcement after hours, they're able to take these individuals right to the county jail, and they would then take control of them at that point so that the police officers can get back out into their communities without maybe having to be with these individuals for 4 or 5 hours during the night. And so we put that process. It took time. We had to find places to put it. I actively got involved in that to try to work with all the different entities, come to a consensus of how we could make that happen. We've been doing that for the last 3 or 4 years now, and it seems to have worked very well. So that's kind of saying our communities need to be safe. We need to keep our law enforcement on the streets. So let them bring people off hours to the jail. And that was a big process. It was a big change in that one area of law enforcement. Okay.
Well,
again, better for the community.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I recently applied for a non-resident carry permit for Virginia. We have a house down there. Okay. So I applied for that, and I actually had to go there to be fingerprinted because our local police don't do that anymore because they have the booking center. Once I went down there, it was easiest thing possible. Yeah. You walked in, everything was done. As a matter of fact, they were very friendly, very kind, and got their jobs done. I walked out of there within 20 minutes. life is good, so it handles more than just booking prisoners. And many times when you need a fingerprint chart for your occupation or your new employer or something like this, you can go down there. It's not just for criminals anymore, which
Absolutely.
I put myself into the non-criminal
No,
basis.
yeah,
So,
that's fine.
so
But
what,
then it makes things more efficient, and so you can get things done. Besides, that whole process allows us to really identify individuals that might come into the area, just as part of the law enforcement that may be wanted in other areas, and so we know who we're dealing with quicker. There's a lot of new technology that's being introduced into that field that makes us safer and gets the job done faster. So that's one thing that I did that I really kind of chaperoned myself. As part of the three commissioners, we all work together on issues, but each of us have sort of interest. I've also worked with our planning department, okay? And I'm big on infrastructure. If you have sewer lines and water lines, then you're going to see development in areas. And so basically working with our planning commission, I encourage them to get a sort of a whole survey of all the sewer systems, all the sanitary sewer, the treatment plants around the county, so that we could look at, as we move forward, how do we build that infrastructure in the right way. You don't put something upstream if you need something downstream first. And so some of those planning things I really like to get involved with, so that we kind of don't react, but we start planning ahead throughout the county for the future. I'll be honest with you, all of us have worked with the Parks and Recreation. You have Cross Creek, Mingo, the Panhandle Trail, and the 10 Mile Park. These parks are something that, people come and live in an area. If they're coming here just to work, they want to live here because they have a quality of life. And so we really have been pushing hard for putting money back into our parks. Usually that's the last thing you spend money on. But what we've been doing with some of the gas royalty monies and other things, putting that in, and I've been pushing that we do that, just like we put new trails in, new comfort stations, all those things in the parks area, okay? I think that one of the things I'm working on currently, we have a lot of problems right now throughout the whole county with the flooding issue. No, we're not North Carolina. We're not maybe what's happening down in Florida, down in the Panhandle right now, Florida. But we have issues here that our people are suffering. And so I've been really working with some of the communities to try to get something done to alleviate maybe flooding situations in the future, and also get ahead of why the flooding occurs. What can we do other than we can't stop the rain? What can we do in the flooding issue? So I have a task force I put together made up of from Cecil to South Franklin. That is your Chartiers watershed. Peters Township has been involved with that. And also so that we can look at what can we do with the Corps of Engineers and DEP to do anything we can to alleviate some of the trouble areas we see in the areas in flooding. The big issue we're looking at now, and it's not something that's easy to fix, we have landslides going on everywhere.
Yes.
I was just in Fallowfield area this week, visiting down there to look at one of their slides. If I look at North Strabane, a big one, if I look at Bentleyville, Robinson, they're all over the areas that we're having, with all the rain, with all the development, we're having slides. So we're just looking, I'm trying to do something so that we keep it alive and maybe get some things done for the future. How can we alleviate? And you have to have a plan. So we need a design done, and I think that's moving forward. Then we can start implementing some of the fixes.
Well, you did
That's
mention
something I do personally.
You did mention something about Florida. Before I came here today, I heard that has turned into a potential Category 5.
Absolutely. Right now it's happening.
And and it's going to be hitting here this afternoon. And I just hope everybody pray for those folks, because I used to be in charge of the disaster response force for the Air Force, who responded to things like that, and it was never good. I mean, like I said, any storm's bad, especially whenever it's numbered. But whenever you get into a Category 5, that's called the finger of God, and that is just a terrible possibility. And those people only had 2 days to get prepared. So I hope everybody
quick down there on them.
Yeah.
It's escalated.
Yeah, I hope everybody just keeps them in their prayers. The flooding down along in the Monongahela, once again, that place gets beat up for everything.
Sure.
Economically as well as physically with the rains and everything else. one of the things, I mean, even in our school building, the new ones we're building, people have asked me about these humongous craters. They're water retention areas. They will shrink as time goes on, but the EPA only requires us to allow as much water that was getting into the creek when that was a golf course.
Yeah.
So as time goes on, grass will be planted and then less water will be coming down. Those will shrink significantly, but we will always have some water retention there because we'll be putting
Very
the road,
necessary, by the way.
putting the road through, which in fact, and that's part of our problem that we're doing right now. We're replacing farmland with homes and driveways and roads and drives and everything else, in which the water can't be absorbed. So then we're finding those places that didn't flood before
Absolutely.
are now being flooded because they just have much more water. The grass isn't growing because now you have pavement on top of it. So there's a lot of things that people have to be looking at, and it's not just an overnight idea.
No.
It's
It's a long-term
Yeah.
solution, but with some immediate fixes that can alleviate specific problems.
Well, and
Yeah.
we're in a school building here. We're talking about emergency preparedness and things. I know the county's been involved. Whenever I was chairman of the Buildings and Grounds, I had to send our facilities booklet,
Emergency plans.
yeah,
yes.
emergency plans and everything to the county. The NFs, I always get that wrong. I don't know why. I worked with it for 25 years. The chemicals that we have in our facility, we would have to send that to the local police, local fire as well as, so the fire department knows. The community doesn't know that all of this is happening.
No.
Yeah, and that's always interesting to see the in-depth response that the community has to give to the county and to the local emergency management, so we don't put them in any more harm than they have to be, and it's always a terrible situation. Like I said, we just had a small fire here at the building last night because of one of the pieces of equipment. That could have had devastating effects, but luckily our system is set up to in fact handle that, and it's almost taken care of at this point. So I mean, there's a lot of things, but that's just here at our local level, in our school building. The issues that the county has, like you said, besides the mudslides, besides the flooding,
Let me talk a little bit about that. The first thing, it takes a lot of cooperation with a lot of people to be prepared for any emergencies that come up. So each municipality should come up, and they are coming. They come up with their own disaster preparedness information. That's then gathered at the county with our 911, our emergency management team. So there's a lot of coordination that has to be done there to know, for instance, when Houston was flooded back with Ivan in '04, I think it was, there was even a list put together by Peters Township of who had boats, private boats, that could go and help if they flooded areas, because they were using boats to rescue people. But these plans come together at the county, and then the county emergency management can also help be reactive when something happens, so they're prepared. They've got a lot of equipment. For instance, the gas industry, which is new in the area, the foam machines, the things that can help put out fires and that. All that is coordinated, and training goes on between our local first responders and our emergency management team. So we do a lot together. It starts with the local groups, giving some direction back and forth with the county. And something we're doing now, over time, we've had a 911 system that has been there for some time. And so we're looking to really, throughout the county, upgrade that system, which is going to cost a little bit of money, but it's basically trying to keep up with technology, make sure that we have great communication with our fire, our police, and our first responder emergency EMS. So all this is a coordinating effort, but it takes everybody to be involved. And bottom line is, that's very important if we run into these situations that you see, and we do. I mean, it could be power outage. It's simple. We've had a lot of power outages. When the power goes out, you have people that are on respirators or on ventilation, or they're on different types of equipment. The hospitals, the health centers, all these things are dependent. So power being out for a few days could cause something we don't think about, but it could be really detrimental to the quality of life in certain areas. So all these things are looked at, and how are we ready if something happens. And that's what we work on every day with our emergency management team.
We talked a little bit about the parks.
Yes.
And as you well know, a couple years ago, our group had a reunion down at Mingo. It went perfectly. Thank you very much. The police, one of the things when you're planning stuff like this, I've been doing it long enough to know that as we're getting older, we need some more, possible medical attention, like you said, for playing ball or something. So, and the police there were more than happy to stop in every hour just to check and see if everything was okay.
Yeah.
We offered them food, they didn't take it, but that, that's beside the point. But you've done a lot in the parks. My son and his wife and family run through Mingo all the time. They see whenever there's a problem, and they tell me that the next time they run, it's taken care of. So somebody is doing an active part in making sure that park, as well as I'm sure the other ones, are being kept up. We've talked about the parks, we've talked about the flooding, we've talked about the emergency. Let's talk about the other things the county has. Like I said, most people don't understand this stuff is there. That's what's crazy about it. Assistance for the elderly.
Yeah, with our human services is a big part of what the county, when I came in as county commissioner 7 years ago, I was not aware of the degree of what we do in what we call human services. This would be our veterans, our children and youth, our seniors. And we do a lot in those areas. That's a big part of our budget throughout the county. The courts and all the other things we do. But the human services side, which would be mental health, drug and alcohol, all the things that the people that are in need, that's why I guess those services are there, and that's what it's important. So we've been working on that. In fact, we're working on integrating our human services. For instance, if someone has a mental health issue, they also have a homeless issue, okay? They come in through different front doors for those different agencies. And so we might have one family involved in 3 or 4 different situations that each one's doing separately. So what I'm working on is try to integrate these services, so once you come in the door for any one of these issues that you need, we're able to say, look, this is something it's not only a homeless issue, it's a mental health issue, or drug and alcohol, or a senior citizen that needs help. So by doing that, we can cut down the delays and make things more efficient to address people's needs quicker. Now that's an internal efficiency that I work on those things all the time in the county. That's not something you publicize and go out and say, look what I did. But it's something that's part of the everyday job of county commissioners involved in making things more streamlined. We have been, the last number of years, we've held 1,100 employees. We recently sold the health center. Now we're down to 800 plus. So we actually reduced 300 employees over time. We're not growing, but we're growing in certain areas like CYS with all the issues with children. And so by being efficient, I feel part of that we're trying to be efficient in running government, at the same time trying to provide the services. It's a balancing, right? People say, why did you sell the health center? I'm just going to speak out on that.
Sure.
It was costing us $3 to $5 million a year to provide that service to the people and our residents. We found that there was a private agencies, which is what's happening around the country, private agency that were really interested in when we put it up for sale. A number of people would look at it, wanted to buy the health center. We can do health center, which somebody else can do, which is why we went that way, a private agency, or we can do children and youth, or we can do mental health. Those are services we have to provide as a county. The health center, by going private, there's only 17 out of 67 counties in the state that have health centers, right, that are county run. So it's just being pushed. The rates are different. It's not something that we need to be in that business, but we felt that we still wanted to have people to be cared for.
Well,
and that's what's happening today. There's a Premier Washington Health Center is still there, still handling the residents that we did before.
Yeah, the government, whenever it gets involved in health, as we found on a national level, the so-called affordable health care. I had friends who say that their monthly rates went from $400 to $900. It's not affordable, but government, like post office, should stay out of that business.
Yeah.
They don't do it well, But the bottom line is, you've been involved. Whenever I had Gene Vitone on our program last year, he gave you a lot of credit for two programs. One, supporting the drug and alcohol program, and the second one is the Veterans Court.
Yeah.
And those are two things that, and you know, thank God I'm not involved in the drug or alcohol, but being a veteran, I do know that there are issues that veterans have that non-veterans don't have.
Yeah.
And that's, and like I said, and I've had some people say, well, why should they have their own court? Well, you know what? If you're ever put under that stress, you act differently than people who have never been put under there. And that stress never leaves, you know.
Well, look at it from a broad view. We have specialty courts, whether it be drug and alcohol, mental health, veterans court. And the issue there is diversion from just sitting in jail for now and never getting any treatment. It costs the county, it costs us as taxpayers a lot of money to have people just sitting there not being treated. They go out, they come back. It's recidivism is ongoing. So by having these courts and trying to put people into treatment, hopefully they become productive in their lives, and we don't deal with them anymore because they're out on their own being productive, like I said. So there's a reason for doing things. We have pretrial services where if someone gets involved with the DUI or something, they come in like first offense. If someone does really violent crime, they're going to be in jail. There's no doubt we want them in jail. We want to protect the citizens. But there's a lot of things that happen there that really, by getting into treatment, not waiting 6 months and going into treatment, putting them into treatment, being monitored, etc. That's kind of what we're trying to do. And I think law enforcement throughout the nation has tried to go that direction. It's a cost item, but it's actually a people item. It's trying to get people to, and a lot of people get into the drug and alcohol because of the pharmacy drugs. Good families get involved with these things, and nobody intended to do that. So there's a lot of reasons why we want to try to help the people. At the same time, we need to do things efficiently and do it in the right areas.
Well, like I said, whenever Gene was on, I pointed out a couple weeks before he came on, I was watching a program on the BBC about drugs. And the sad thing is, the program that the British Broadcasting Network was doing was on Southwest Pennsylvania. And that was, you know, like I said, that was bringing it really to home that sometimes living in the world we live in on a day-to-day basis, we don't understand that the problems that we have are very severe. And it does, I mean, that's not just down in Brownsville, it's not down in Monongahela, it's here in Peters Township too, yeah. And, you know, like I said, I don't know anybody, and I don't care what their age, I don't know anybody who hasn't been affected or had a friend that has been affected by drugs at this time. And it's really a shame.
Let me address the Southwest Pennsylvania. I believe if you look at statistics, I'm board chair of our state commissioners association this year, and I was president last year. We have a task force been working on the drug and alcohol issues, which then ties into our national association, which is working on drug issues nationwide. So, you know, when I look at that, some of the reason why Southwest Pennsylvania, in my opinion, was highlighted a little bit because we have actively we've been going after addressing it. And so when you're out there and you're pushing and you're doing programs and you're trying to put statistics out there, I think people see that and all of a sudden you become a headline.
And that's probably true in this media.
It's a problem everywhere. It's a problem here. But it's also something where I think we've got some accolades on how we've been trying to address some of the issues. And as from a state association, we're learning, we're sharing, and it's something that, like I said, it's bigger than Southwest, but yes, we have to address it.
Yeah.
And we're also working on a prescription drugs issue. I mean, there's so many areas of treatment, enforcement, but keeping people from getting into, I look at the whole drug issue as it's like a funnel. And if you can stop people from coming into that funnel to need the drugs, then you can really start working on treatment and law enforcement to get rid of it. So the idea that I have is let's spend our money where it makes sense. Let's stop the people that are on prescription drugs. Let's work on those. Let's get non-addicting drugs out there. Do things for pain that does not put people into that funnel, because it's going to be something that's going to be hard. It's one of those long-term fixes again.
Yeah, one of the things about government that I found out a long time ago, it took me 4 years just to get the lights on our flags at the schools, which is a requirement by law. And we're probably the only school system in the entire country that has every American flag has a light on it, and it comes on at nighttime. But it took me 4 years as an insider to get that done. So it's never ever fast. Government doesn't move fast, and spending people's money should be a major concern of any government. But we in fact have to look at all those issues and try to prioritize as we need. And it's tough, as you know, as a school. It's tough as a community, and it's tougher, I'm sure, as a commissioner.
But you have to take one step to get to the next step.
Yeah.
And if we start now, it might be 5 years down the road to fix something. But if we don't start now, it's not going to be 5 years, it's going to be 10, 15, 20. So I believe in taking action, even if you know that the end isn't real clear. Taking action, try to always look for the future, and I think that takes us the right direction.
Well, as they say, every trip starts with the first step.
Yes.
And
Yes.
Harlan, it has been a wonderful opportunity sitting down with you again. And they keep throwing a 30-second sign up to me, so I'm going to, in fact, say that we're going to be ending here real soon.
Okay.
But the bottom line is, it's always enjoyable talking to you. Please give my best to Jackie,
I'll do
and
that. Thank you.
like I said, we'll look forward to seeing you folks over the holidays.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
No problem.
Thank you, Bill.
Take care. Thank you very much for coming, talking politics in Western Pennsylvania. We look forward to seeing you the next time.